Yo, what's up guys, your boy Nitrostorm here, welcome back to Wuthering Waves. So, Cartethyia may not be as free to play friendly as we thought. So, the first thing we'll talk about is the weapon. So, the Fire's Thorn, very nice weapon, a sword, and the first thing that it implies with the main stats and the weapon passive is that Cartethyia will be a HP scaling main DPS character. Now, this doesn't bode well in many different ways. So the first thing is she might be the new first place character in terms of having, you know, the largest gap between signature weapon and weapon alternatives to date. Now, the old king at the moment is Brant with his weapon due to being another unique scaler, in his case energy regen, but we do have relatively decent alternatives, albeit still large difference in performance compared to the signature weapon. In this case, I think Cartethyia will now take the cake with having maybe the newest large difference between signature and weapon alternatives. I'm expecting around a 40% discrepancy between signature and weapon alternatives. Now, for weapon alternatives, we do have Emerald of Genesis and Camellia's signature weapon, but unfortunately for those, they have higher base attack at the cost of lower secondary stats, so the amount of crit rate they give is lower than normal. And the weapon passives, Cartethyia can take advantage of Camellia's basic attack damage bonus buffs, but she won't be able to take advantage of Camellia's attack buff from her signature weapon and the attack buff from Emerald of Genesis. And unfortunately, 4-star weapon alternatives are currently all kaput. They all either provide attack percent as a secondary main stat or energy regen. And I think the latest story in the latest patch may have a weapon, free-to-play weapon that we may be able to use for Cartethyia, but I'm not sure about that just yet. Now, that is not the only thing that this implication does. There's one major thing that you may have slipped your mind, and that is echoes. Echoes. So firstly, Sierra Gale is safe. It's not the main DPS sets that we're worrying about, it's actually the support buffs, the support echo sets. Firstly, Rejuvenating Glow is now less valuable for Cartethyia because attack bonus from 5-piece is now Dunzo. This guy right here, Fallacy of No Return, also Dunzo. Because if you take a look here, casting this guy will give everyone 10% bonus to attack. Again, not really useful for Cartethyia potentially. I mean, with such a major HP percent increase in the weapon, I don't think there's any possibility that she isn't HP scaling in every single attack. Now, another kit, Moonlit Clouds, famous for being one of the best support echo sets in the game, now useless for Cartethyia. Increase attack of the next resonator by 22.5%. Cartethyia will not be able to benefit from that. Now, if we do take a look at the forecasts, as you can see here, the outro, casting an outro gives the next character a 12% damage boost, so you can still use Moonlit Cloud. And then if you look at the Bellborn, as you can see, we get a 10% damage boost whilst we still have the shield when casting it. So whilst there's still benefits for Cartethyia, we still miss out on 22.5% attack, which is one of the biggest reasons why we use Moonlit Clouds in the first place. And you know, why stop there? Let's keep going. So one of the more recent echo sets, very famous on coordinated attackers, increased the resonate coordinated attack by 80% upon a critical hit of coordinated attack increase the active resonator's attack by 20% for 4 seconds. So this thing right here is very nice on stuff like Motefi, Cantarella, and Jeja. This is now useless for Cartethyia. So TLDR in terms of Cartethyia, basically all of this is mostly useless for Cartethyia. Any support set that you can think of is useless in terms of wanting to support for Cartethyia, unfortunately. So the only thing we're left with is the latest set, Gusts of Welkin. Inflicting aero erosion upon enemies increases aero damage for all resonators in the team by 15%, and for the resonator triggering this effect by additional 15%. So 15% aero damage bonus to all resonators in the team, right? From inflicting aero erosion. Now, we have a major problem when it comes to Gusts of Welkin. Now, the main reason for that is because realistically, we only have one actual aero erosion applicator in the entire game right now. And that is none other than the currently released character, the latest release, Shakona. And we only have 20 hours remaining as of this recording. And Shakona herself is able to apply aero erosion. And not only that, the aero erosion she can apply is so good. The ultimate provides you with consistent aero erosion application, 1 aero erosion stack per second consistently, so you're always going to be capped at aero erosion. And you know, that's great news, right? Because you can use the Gusts of Welkin, but she is a 5-star premium unit. You have to keep that in mind. And unfortunately for this rover, they are absolute trash when it comes to aero erosion. Main reason for that is because if you take a look at the only attack in their kit that even has a slight chance of inflicting aero erosion, it is only due to the transfer of stacks from other elemental status effects. So in this case, Spectral Frazzle, because that's the only thing we have available right now. So translating Spectral Frazzle, Havoc Bane Fusion Burst, Glacial Chaff, and Electro Flare. Translating that, so basically any other status effect other than aero erosion will become aero erosion, you know, once you transfer it. So let's say you use Phoebe. Phoebe uses her ult and does the shenanigans, and you now have 10 stacks of Spectral Frazzle. ARover uses their resonance skill. Now that becomes 3 stacks of aero erosion, because the maximum stack is 3. Unless you did outro with Rover beforehand, at which the 10 stacks of Spectral Frazzle will now become 6 stacks of aero erosion. So basically, as a free-to-play, if you want to actually use Gusts of Welkin, you better have Phoebe in your team. And if you have Zani in your account, well, you know, you're kind of in a predicament. You either would need to pull for Shakona to have someone use the Gusts of Welkin, or just skip Gusts of Welkin altogether. Because there's always that option as well. Just skip Gusts of Welkin. Don't put it on your ARover if you're not going to pull Shakona. Just leave it. Now that is out of the way, I'll keep this outro skill open for when we look at the profile reveal for Shakona, for Cartethyia. So, in terms of her full kit in general, this is not a guide video, so I'll just be brief in what her kit is like. You basically prep with Cartethyia, so aka the smaller form, and then once you have the prep done, you switch to Fleur de Lis, you do your attacks, and then you do the big attack. Now, a discrepancy for that is, if you don't have a consistent applicator like Shakona in the team to provide you with aero erosion stacks, you're going to have to switch back and forth between Cartethyia and Fleur de Lis during the Fleur de Lis form to, you know, keep track of your aero erosion stacks to ensure that you're taking advantage of Cartethia's second inherent skill. Not only that, you need to keep in mind of your aero erosion stacks because of Cartethia's nuke right at the end of her rotation, where if you max out the Forte bar during Fleur de Lis form and you cast the Resonance Liberation, it'll remove all stacks of aero erosion on the target, and then each stack removed will amplify the damage taken by the target by 20% up to 5 stacks. So 100% amplification if you had 5 erosion stacks prior to casting the final ultimate for the rotation. Now, if you take a look at the inherent skills on top of that, the first one here, the first half is fine. Everyone else in the team except for Cartethyia gets 20% healing bonus and resist to interruption. The second line here is if Rover Aero is in the team, ARover additionally restores 25 wind strings upon casting their Liberation Omega Storm. So this makes ARover's rotation much faster, which is nice. And then the inherent skill, targets with 1 to 3 stacks of aero erosion take 30% more damage from Cartethyia and Fleur de Lis. Targets with more than 3 stacks of aero erosion additionally take 10% more damage from Cartethyia and Fleur de Lis for each stack of aero erosion they have up to 3 stacks. So for S0 Cartethyia, right, that's a key thing there, S0 Cartethyia, we basically need ARover if you want to utilize Cartethyia to her full potential. If you want to unleash Cartethia's full potential, we need ARover in the team. And the passive, specifically mentioning ARover, doesn't really help when it comes to future plans. Now, the main reason for that is because Rover in general can split into many different elements. And so far, Rover themselves can switch between Spectro, Havoc, and Aero. Sooner or later, we're going to be getting the other elements. So, for example, Glacio and Fusion. So, keep that in mind. And so, if you're planning on saving saving Rover for another element, and you want Cartethyia as well, then you're in a bit of a pickle. So, what would be the solutions for the unique, buff that only ARover can provide? Now, the inherent skill that Cartethyia has in relation to ARover, this isn't really, something that means, oh, without ARover she's bad, right? Now, albeit it does make one of Cartethia's inherent skills useless for herself if you don't have ARover in the team, but we do have at least a potential fix for the second inherent skill. So the first fix, if you don't want to use ARover, is to wait for a new character in the future to release, a future aero character. I don't know. There's no information on this at all. This is just purely speculation. Is that we would wait for a future character that can increase the amount of aero erosion stacks, like a third character that is not ARover, in which case we'll be able to utilize Cartethia's kit to the fullest without ARover. And then the second fix for this is actually, I think this is still leak territory, but this is within Cartethia's dupe system. So with Cartethia's S2, she herself can increase the maximum stacks of aero erosion that the opponent can receive by 3. And so if you have Cartethyia S2, then you don't need ARover, but at the same time it makes one of her inherent skills basically useless outside of your other characters having increased resistance to interruption. So there you have it. Apologies if this video sounded like a rant video. I just wanted to let everyone know of this. I thought it is important because there are a lot of things to keep in mind when it comes to Cartethyia, mainly due to her being a HP scaler, and her reliance in Rover is this time very blatant. Because, you know, compared to Zani Phoebe, Phoebe and Rover, Phoebe and Spectral Rover can essentially, you know, alternate between each other, kind of similar roles, but Shakona and ARover have completely different roles when it comes to aero erosion. One side provides the aero erosion, the other side has a unique and very inconvenient way of providing aero erosion, but their main purpose is increasing the amount of stacks of aero erosion for the team. So yeah, overall, hopefully you understand why I said at the beginning that Cartethyia might not be as free-to-play friendly as we initially thought. Hopefully this will give you a better idea on your future plans, whether or not you're pulling for Shakona, or if you have pulled Shakona, then you might as well pull for Cartethyia. In my case, pull for Cartethyia if you like her as a character. For Shakona, I did initially pull her for Cartethyia, you know, as a coping thing, as in like she might be needed for Cartethyia, that kind of thing. But her story was actually pretty great in terms of the event story. I think it could have been main story material, but at least the event itself is permanent. I think Kuro Games knew that her story is actually kind of relevant to the main story, hence they made it a permanent event. But yeah, it is what it is. So overall, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you have any questions or wish to discuss further with me, again, you can also let me know down in the comments below. It's been your boy Nitrostorm. I'll see you guys in the next stream or video. Peace.